to the DG for approval before the end of the month, and also for it to be lodged with the National Treasury before the 31st of March. And on the 1st of April, then funding will go to the unions from onwards, and then the plans can be implemented. So some of the issues that were raised regarding, we started the training in July. Probably this time around, some of us would be finished with the training by July. But it's just to share to the other colleagues and stakeholders. Okay. So let me just focus on what we're talking about, phase 2, but also I'll address some of the questions that were raised earlier. One of the things I see SACE is gone. Maybe SACE has 466 providers and so on, who then charge people to be trained, which is nothing wrong. And then SACE has certain targets that they need to meet. We, through the unions, have appointed people who will provide us with training of our master trainers. In those arrangements, we are then permitted to train through our master teachers other educators. And we may take some of that intellectual property, the kits and so forth, going forward. So even though our course is endorsed, the one that is on the SACE database is not necessarily our provider of training. The actual provider is the TUC itself. Maybe we can't claim for the 916 unless you say that my contract is with you to train every one of my teachers, which is not the case. It's teachers who train teachers. Nothing without teachers. And it's working. So we do not have to change because SACE needs to meet a target or endorse us or so on in order to get the points. The other thing about the training, our master trainers get more than a day, 2, 3, 4, depending on how what we expect from them if we believe they are not up to standard. The training itself on the unplugged can be done in 4, can be done in 8. So we are not looking at stretching the training so that a provider gets more money. Or we pay for accommodation and so forth, which other people like to do so that somebody gets a cut from something. So the 4 hours basically is what is there, but I'm not in that. We negotiate elsewhere on other things, but we're not negotiating with SACE so that you can look good. Our job is to ensure our member or our educator gets the training and the quality training. Or is it that you want the points and you're not worried about the quality of the training to our member or educator, employee? So that's another debate elsewhere, but we should not compromise our program based on what you want to set out to achieve, because when you have success, everyone wants to be. You are like honey. Everyone wants to taste that honey. But when your honey is sour, no one wants to be near you. So just be jealous of your success and protect it, right? So in phase 2, the unions will share their plans. Robotics and coding could be there. We've created problems. I've created a problem. I'll take the blame now. I'll say it's me. But there are problems now that we are facing. We've created expectation. There are teachers who got trained who want more. Are we able to give all of them more because we've got the same? We've got the same amount of money, we've got the same amount of time. Are we going to give them the same? There are others who have been trained who need more. They want the next levels. There are those who are not part of the training, they want to be part of it. And we need to look at how we compile this together so that we do ensure there's efficiency. And it's not anymore about robotics and coding or digital skills. There are members, educators want other skills as well. The trade unions have made their own assessment about what are the special needs that, or the particular needs that their members want. Now we will have to come up with a balance. And then Professor Emende, we've been having this discussion the whole year. You chose your own 3 providers. Whether they're equal or not equal, you decided. It is not PADI, it's not a DBE. We only shared with you. You know, I can't sit next to any of the providers. I wouldn't even sit to eat lunch or drink a cup of tea. Next thing, when they get the contract, it said, no, PADI is getting something. You see? So we only shared the providers, and the unions then had their own engagements. What you did, I don't want to know. What you didn't do, I also don't want to know. But I think you did a good job, and I think the providers as well. I think it was a fair. I didn't want the providers to feel that we were taking and not giving something back. So those are the things that there will be. The other is maybe we should just do nothing if we got all these problems, so that the gap can remain the same, but the gap will never remain the same. Those who have will always want more. And they'll want more because they take it from those who don't have. So that is why we are here, and we want to make sure that those who don't have, someone is their champion. And this program, in a way, has ensured that some of those teachers who face the most difficulty, and in fact some are in the room today, but many others are not here, are able to do this. But we need to ensure that they do receive support. So in this phase 2, the unions will share what it is they looked at and what they're going forward with. But there is pressure. There will be expectation. There's one, I think our colleagues from the National Treasury are not here. I was hoping they would be here. They were not to us in the other meeting as well. There are other pressing meetings because we're coming to the end of the financial year. It's not a negative. It's also maybe a sign of confidence that we're doing the right thing. They don't have to worry about coming to our meeting because they will see the report and they expect us to, they know that we're going to deliver. Therefore, let's focus our attention elsewhere. But we want them to see this because we want more. We want another zero behind the money we're getting. We want another zero behind the 22 or 23,000. That's what we're after, because we know we can deliver. We got the 1 year under our belt. This is a second phase, and there is a third phase. So we're building on that, and the program this time, hopefully you will, unions understood that there's a business plan, there's certain processes, and I'd rather not have, I don't want an audit finding. I'd rather have no audit findings and no points than points and audit finding. You know, and then the program gets stopped. So in phase 2, we commence. Some unions will be procuring their service provider in that time. Others may find it easier because they're going back to the people they worked with, and they will kick off. We have got certain principles at times not to try to use school teaching time. Work with the provincial departments to assist you in where you could train. Hopefully we don't go train the same educator over the same course, which does happen at times with us. And the educator forgets, because he or she can get out of school, they'll go to the same course again, right? So let's hope we don't do that. We give others who may not have got a chance, but we've got a footprint in the 75 districts. We need to ensure that those schools which were not accommodated in the plans the last time, we're able to cover in that regard. So, and phase 2 doesn't start, we don't start planning on the 1st of April. On the 1st of April, we are in action, And then we hope to basically conclude by the third term. When we go into what is called the spring vacation, then that's a close-up. We do talk about mop-up thereafter, but it's not a true mop-up. It's because one or two things may have happened along the way, and that's why now we're sitting here. None of these people are running around the country trying to finish the training, or to say, you'll go and see now, we got, as departments, we're trying to finish our money before the end of the financial year. So we're running around, we're training, and we're having meetings and things like that. Maybe this is also part of it, to finish our money. So that's the thing that's going to happen. And I think beyond this as well, unions will probably have their own gatherings to explain to their constituency as to how the training is going. We will have further engagements with our provincial colleagues now in 9 different forums as such, when we want to share information about what we have done and what we're going to do. But it works, and we just want to make it work better. And we want to cover as more people, so that's when the pressure comes. And there are many people who have many ideas. Some are great, which you like to take on board, which I did listen to. And I think the plans that the provinces, the unions will present, they may decide to adjust based on the inputs made today. There are some very interesting ones that I think will enrich the program and assist. Also, our focus would also move towards more emphasis on the special needs, the Elson schools as well, which we did not, we did something, but not in a very conscious manner. Well, we did raise it, but it's quite difficult. The costs are a bit more. But I think this time around, we got more time, and we can ensure that that sector we do justice to in that regard. Also, I think earlier, I think my colleague here from Newcastle was talking about the science or the graduate and so forth. We as a branch, we got our other program which does have the zeros in it. Is the Basic Education Employment Initiative, the Presidential Youth Employment Initiative, where it's 255,000. Obviously the money is different, that's in the billions, but that's our other business. So here we'd also like to go to scale in that regard, because it's 400,000, 450,000 when you count independent schools as well of educators you want to deal with. And we can do this, we've done it, and we're going to do it again. So now I'm going to call upon my colleagues from the unions. We'll start with SATU, then NAPTOSA, NATU, SAU, and PEU. Fasika Solomon will speak for SATU.
Thank you very much, DDG. Good afternoon to everyone. We're in the graveyard shift, but that's fine. Colleagues, I will be presenting on behalf of SATU, and what it is that I'll do is, I think it's important that I reflect from a national perspective, that we look at reflecting what it is that we've done, what are the lessons that we've learned, and how do we then move forward in terms of 2023. So I think I need to start with just looking at why it is that as a union we embrace the TUC, that we embrace and appreciate the opportunity to actually do training for our members through the TUC, to be part of the skills for the changing world. Then also that as a union we understand that we are the voice of teachers, but we also understand that we have a critical role to play in terms of teacher development. And the TUC provides us an opportunity, an additional opportunity to do that. We're also saying that we need to emphasize that teachers need to drive their own professional development. And this is exactly what we did through the teacher union collaboration and the training that we did through the union collaboration. Because it was about teachers training teachers, taking responsibility for their own professional development. But also the programs, and as you know, all unions have professional development institutes. And so the programs that we run is demand-driven through the needs of our members. What is it that our members need? But it's also supply-driven. So what we do as unions through participating in the teacher union collaboration is we actually complement the strategic teacher development goals of DBE. And so that is our role that we need to play in terms of the TUC. So what it is that we're doing, because traditionally unions are not, doesn't do training, but through the teacher union collaboration, we stepped up beyond the traditional mandate of dealing with labor-related issues only, and we recognize the opportunity that the TUC provided us to bring capacity building and training to our members. So very briefly, when we looked at the framework and we discussed the framework, what were the implications for SATU? The implication was that when we had the first meeting, that we had to train 15,500 teachers across the country. And that evening I didn't sleep because I was concerned, how are we going to do this? Because we've never trained this amount of teachers in 1 year. But what then transpired was the support that we got pulled us through. And so it was support and the camaraderie of the other teacher unions, because I could call on Hema, I could call on Marina to say, just guide me through this, because it was something new for me. The other support that we got, it was from the provinces. And we also got the support from DBE. And I think I must single out Zareen in terms of just the communication, and Simone in terms of supporting, because I can remember we chatted like 6 o'clock in the morning to say, Zareen, I've got a problem, and she would respond. But also that the DDG was on call. We could call him for guidance in terms of how because it was new for everyone. So that type of support is something that pulled us through, and that is what resulted in the success of the teacher union collaboration and the training of 2022. I just want to briefly look at the Unplugged and why it is as a union we went for Unplugged. We needed to look at our membership, we needed to look at the needs of our membership, but we also needed to take into consideration the reality of the South African schools, that we differ, that we have various levels of infrastructure, resources, data, connectivity, devices, and we have load shedding. And so we needed to take that in consideration. We also needed to take into consideration that teachers had varying levels of digital capacity and knowledge. So what we decided on Unplugged, because we did not want your data, connectivity, infrastructural challenges to become a barrier for our teachers to have access to the training on coding and robotics. Because the implication is, if you leave people out, is that the learners attached to them will then be denied the opportunity to be exposed to coding and robotics. So we were conscious in the decision that we made around Unplugged. And we can say today, we're not sorry that we did that, because it had an impact where we wanted it to make an impact in terms of especially our rural schools. Then, as you reflect on what are the key ingredients that made this project of SATU, for SATU, a success. And for me, one of the key ingredients was the provider. The provider that we decided on, and it took a lot of deliberations, a lot of meetings for us to eventually decide that we were going to go with Tangible Africa, we were going to go with Prof. Reiling, and we've never looked back. Now, the reason for that is just the type of professionalism that you get from dealing with the face, with Prof. Reiling. But it was also about the quality of the content, the quality of the product, the quality of the training material, the quality of the resources to support teachers, because that is what it's about. It's about what do you give to teachers to go back to the school to support the implementation. And so this is what the provider provided for us. But also he came with 10 very young, vibrant facilitators who brought the energy into the room. And if you could look at how teachers reacted to the training, they had fun, they were competitive, they were innovative in the way they approached that. So we usually, when we look at facilitation, sometimes people have the knowledge, but they don't have the skills to facilitate. Sometimes you have facilitation skills, but you don't have the knowledge. And these facilitators brought those two together for us. And so this is one of our success factors, I think. Okay, Prof is not so young, but the 10 facilitators, they're very young. Then, in terms of our master trainers, for us what was important is that we set out to train 500. Now, when I said to DDG, we want to train, he said, but you're mad. 500. So I said, yes, because we want to reach the rural, we want to reach as many people as possible. So we put our target there. We eventually trained 549, but for us it was important that we prepared our master teachers thoroughly. So we had a 3-day training, 2 days content training, and the 3rd day we did the planning. Because planning was very important. How are you going to execute this? How are you going to ensure that you reach all the districts? How are you going to ensure that you reach the rural areas? So this was for us important, and we provided the master teachers with the kits. We provided them with a flash drive, with the lesson plans, with lots of resources, and so they could go back and really, they had the resources and they had the knowledge and the training to go back and train. Because for us as SATU, the quality of training is very important. And how you train your master teachers is a critical ingredient in ensuring that that training is successful. Then if we look at the rollout, we set out to train 15,000 teachers in our rollout. We covered all provinces. We have a footprint in every province. We covered all provinces. We covered all districts. What we cannot, the information that we cannot give, and it's a lesson for the next phase, is we don't know exactly how many schools we actually touched. And that is now a lesson, and so for the next phase, this is the information that we will also bring. And so the teachers' training was a 1-day training, and they also then received some resources to go back to school and to implement. Then in terms of the purpose, and I think Zareen spoke about the purpose, that for us it was because we had the issue around the curriculum that is not approved. We said that we cannot go and do training on coding and robotics. What we can do is to orientate teachers. And that is exactly what we did. Because it is coming. It's just a matter of we need to get the curriculum sorted. We need to get the curriculum approved. But in the meantime, teachers feel very anxious about this that is coming. And so therefore, we felt that we needed to introduce coding to our teachers. We needed to orientate them. We needed to ensure that we grow the awareness, demystify, and it was about addressing the fear factor. But more than that, it was about how do you then ensure that the concepts of coding, you can use that to infuse and integrate in all your other subjects. And that was what it was about for us, and we demonstrated then through the training how teachers can do that. And the key issue was that we needed to teach learners how to problem solve, because you cannot code without problem solving. And so while you're teaching coding, you're actually sharpening their problem skills as well. Then, so was our expectations met? It's a definite yes. We orientated, we demystified, we ensured that teachers integrate. So the expectations was met in terms of what we set out to do, but we had unintended outcomes through the training. Through the training, without us saying anything, teachers, the master teachers, adapted the program because in Mpumalanga they had a lot of multi-grade schools. So the teachers adapted the material to suit the multi-grade context. They did that the same with the grade R, and so teachers also then developed their own materials. They used their waste materials, and Deirdre demonstrated that to us. And a lot of teachers did that. They went back to school, and usually we cry, we don't have resources, but they actually made their own resources. And they adapted the resources for their different contexts. Another impact was immediately they started, and these are little WhatsApp messages where teachers actually shared and gave advice as to this is how I did this is how I adapted this grid. And so they were sharing, and this is a community of practice, because we're very cautious to use the word PLCs, because we know that as the unions, there's still this challenge with how PLCs is implemented. But what was critical is we needed to have some type of support for teachers, so that once they're at school, who are supporting them to implement. And so they were the greatest support. The teachers among themselves were the greatest support. And so this was the outflow, unintended outcome in terms of teachers doing it for themselves. Then implementation level at school. Immediately from when the lead teachers were trained, the lead teachers already started implementing. And we have lots of videos, lots of evidence to show that teachers were actually implementing at school level. But what was very heartening for me is this picture on the right. With tanks, it's a game, and so in the training, we went up until level 10, 8, 10. And then what this teacher did, it's a teacher from Limpopo. He actually went back to his school, and there his class reached level 35. And they actually got certificates from Nelson Mandela University. So you can see the level of implementation. And I think that's commendable. It was one of our lead teachers who went and actually implemented. Then in terms of these pictures are all our PD officials, I can proudly say that at every lead teacher training in a province, we had departmental officials present there. But the attitude of the provincial education officials was an attitude of how can we help? And that was heartening. And so I think that is also we need to ensure that we thank the PEDs. If we look at Northern Cape, Northern Cape's distances are very vast. And we had a challenge because we were spending a lot of money on transport. And the department came up and said, listen, tell us where the teachers need to be. We will transport the teachers there. And so that is about collaboration. This is what we do in terms of collaboration. So I need to thank the provincial officials. They were there. Some stayed for the 3 days. Some came in and out. But we appreciated their presence. The teachers appreciated the presence of the officials at the training. What are the areas? Obviously, we were successful. But we had areas where we need to improve. Advocacy and communication. Because we still had problems where some principals welcomed and said, come and train my teachers. And where other principals again said, no, we don't have access to, you can't come and train our teachers. So that type of advocacy of what the purpose of the TUCs is something that we need to work on. Monitoring is something that we need to work on at the different levels, because DBE needs to monitor, PEDs need to monitor, SATU internally we need to monitor, and then SAIS monitor. And SAIS need to be very clear what it is that they're monitoring. You come and monitor the quality of your program that you endorse. That is your monitoring. The other monitoring of how did the training material arrive on time. Those things is not your business. That is the PD. So we need to be very clear in terms of our rules of engagement. Recruitment is in 8 provinces. It was successful. One we need to work on, but it's not something that we cannot bridge if we talk and communicate around it. The delivery of the materials was a big issue for us because we didn't realize that rural town with the post office, how do we courier our material so that it's there on time for the training? And the same with the collection of registers. So while Zareen is giving us the amount of 15,700, we've trained much more. But we don't have the evidence of the registers because registers is lying out there somewhere with couriers. But we will get those registers. Evaluation is important, that we need to strengthen subject advisors as master teachers, because as SATU, we invited to every session. Part of our master trainers were subject advisors. And so we need to really understand how that is going to work in the future, because there were some challenges there. Support, we need to strengthen that, because we're not sure that there's enough support, that we've established enough communities of practice. So that is what we need to pick up on and strengthen. But for me, TDG, is the worry that's keeping me awake is, so what do we do about those that were left out? So your job is to go and look for money for us. I'm joking. So that is that is in the areas for improvement, because obviously it was the first time, and we need to learn from our mistakes and strengthen that. So we're now on phase 2. And what are our plans as SATU for phase 2? Very briefly, we want to bring inclusion in. So what we plan to do is to ensure that we then have a focus area which speaks to unplugged coding and robotics for the visually impaired. Okay, because, I mean, we have an inclusive agenda, and so therefore this is going to be one of our outputs. We said 600, we may have to reduce it, because when we look at the number of schools for visually impaired, we may not be able to make that numbers. But we will work around that. Our plans may still change. But the bulk of our next focus area and the bulk of our training is going to be around assessment for learning. And so these are the benefits of assessment for learning. Assessment for learning is a strategic objective for DBE. The unions have supported the implementation and the move to assessment for learning, your more formative assessment, but there's been some delays in terms of implementation. And I think we need to move speedily. And I think this project can give it just like a kickstart, while we know that in provinces some training has been happening already, and I think we then need to have the conversation with the PEDs where that has happened, so that we can come together and just emerge stronger in terms of implementing assessment for learning. So what we ask providers to do, we haven't decided on a provider yet, what we've asked our providers to do is to build into the training a section where you use the assessment for learning approach to actually introduce your skills for a changing world. So we will look at entrepreneurship, we will look at other skills. So show us how through this approach you can then actually introduce, through assessment for learning, you introduce these skills. In terms of output 3, we then plan to train 14,400 teachers on assessment for learning. And I don't think I'm going to go into the other nitty-gritties that we must still unpack and discuss. Then very important, for assessment for learning, because it's a new approach, teachers need to be trained intensively. So we need at least a 3-day content training, because we cannot send teachers into the classroom doing the wrong thing. And we cannot train teachers. So the approach and how you prepare your lead teachers is going to be important, and the support then through the establishment of your communities of practice is going to be critical for the teachers to actually implement. Then I want to end off by saying that a key principle of our institute is collaboration and networking. And we have this banner that says, education is a societal issue, and we embrace that. And we embrace the fact that all stakeholders have a role to play in terms of education in this country. So as a union, we've networked, and why we network and why we reach out to universities is to ensure that we bring quality training to our members. In conclusion, I want to say then that we value and we will continue to support the TUC initiative. The TUC initiative for me is a shining example of the possibilities, of the power of collaboration to shift the needle towards improved quality of teachers, improving learning outcomes, and improving the overall quality of education in this country. So I thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Naptosa, thank you, Satu. Emma Arira.
Will it play? Must I press it myself here? Then, but the volume I need to, I check guys. But it's over my head. Okay. Good afternoon. Greetings to the leadership from DBE, union leadership, leaders from other entities and provinces, our teachers, if you are still in our midst, and our master trainers. Thank you very much for this opportunity. And on behalf of NAPTOSA, I want to present what it is we've accomplished as part of the teacher union collaboration. But I'm not going to repeat, or I may just make reference to what was done in Zareen's presentation, as well as what was offered now by Fasika. So we appreciate this, of course, I cannot ignore. I must appreciate on behalf of the leadership of NAPTOSA this opportunity to collaborate not just with the DBE, the PEDs, teacher unions, and the teachers on the grounds for the Skills for a Changing World initiative. So I'm not going to read what's there. This is what drove us to make the decisions we made in choosing the two programs. So the programs that we chose linked to this quotation. So we chose, if I just go back, we chose the Intel program. Oops, I'm not touching anything.
You're finished now?
No, no, no. No, no. Okay.
No, that's the rules of the bar.
No. So we chose, what has happened? Can some IT person help me here? Okay. So we chose the Intel for the digital skills. So we had this whole, sorry, that was me. We had this whole shopping basket of things we could be doing with the money that was being offered to us. And we looked at it carefully, and there was coding and robotics, and there was digital skills for the changing world. And we went with Intel, as you will see. And the course and that offered, so the first one was basic skills. And as you heard the teacher from the NAPTOSA representative, the teacher representative say, we erred. Because this whole hullabaloo around coding and robotics, we advertised incorrectly. It does have coding and robotics on level 2 in this program. Level 1 was absolutely basic, teaching you to maximize the your Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and how you can integrate other aspects and to integrate other resources and videos into these programs. So we learned, she spoke of Canva, that how you can use Canva on Word. Within Word, there's templates. Did you know Word can talk? That you can record your notes rather than type it out, as long as your voice it's captured. So there's so many things we've learned on that basic level. And I don't think any of you who's got the programs maximize it to what we've learned through the program. Level 2 speaks to, as I said, it introduces you to coding and robotics. Then there's creative confidence, and up to level 4, it speaks to AI and how you work with AI. So moving on, our business plan last year and this year is pretty much the same. And as I said, I heard during the comment about, linking to the curriculum and reading and mathematics. Karen Wallstra had been working with NAPTOSA in one of our provinces, and there was a good relationship. And when we got this program, we've invited Karen, and she sat with us and actually built in what it is we wanted as well to be added, which was done, and we went with her as well. So for this year, we're looking at the possibility of offering entrepreneurship. We're still engaging, we haven't committed. Hopefully by the time we're ready to submit our plans, we will have some final decisions. So there's the people that we've worked with in terms of the digital skills, Intel and Karen Wallstra, and like we don't know who the entrepreneurship provider will be. So again, reflections, and I can resonate with a lot of the reflections that Fasika actually presented. And I think the first thing is we want to thank the union leadership. There were some skeptics initially. We had change of leadership within the organization. Everybody has received this as a blessing. We've had our leaders on the ground step up also to take up the training, so they could be for advocacy purposes, but also to speak to the success of the program. And then we have the support that I want to say, I've said it earlier, from the officials. Yes, the school managers were not supportive. We would have teachers keen, but the principals at the school were not keen to release the teachers. So there is a need for additional advocacy in terms of getting the buy-in from the school principals. And I think part of it comes to my next point, was the training during or on school days versus weekdays and holidays. And we had committed, and NAPTOSA had committed to work with the least disruption of schooling. Unfortunately, we couldn't meet our targets. As you heard, we only started rolling out the program in July, and there was not enough holidays, and there was not enough Saturdays. And so we went into this year, and we unfortunately had to work on the school days, and it was problematic. So coming to the lead teacher, we had big lessons to learn. We decided on 2-day training. What we didn't anticipate was, in the training session, our teachers were quite interactive and were confident. When it came to delivering, and I'm going to give you a good example, in one province, we trained 30 lead teachers for the Intel program. Do you know how many we have that's training, helping us train? 4 of them. They fell off for various reasons, but more so confidence. Now that the Intel program, while you train, it takes 80 hours for you to complete the entire course. And we got, with a contract that we signed, or the MOA with the service provider, you have access to the platform for the entire year. And they said, you can do it in about 12 weeks if you give dedicated time. So teachers found it difficult, so the lead teachers didn't have the time to go through the platforms, making it difficult. We also had the same problem with our, the unplugged, the one that Michelle spoke to. Again, teachers didn't feel confident enough to be able to deliver. I think going forward, we need to seriously consider how we resource the potential lead teachers. We may need some assistance from the provinces. There may be lead teachers in your provinces doing work, and if we could collaborate so we don't waste money. We had a lot of wasteful expenditure in terms of the training of the lead teachers. But unfortunately, or fortunately, we have now increased that because we had a problem also in how we divided the provinces. We said we wouldn't take it to all. We went to 4 provinces. We swamped provinces where Sao, Sattu, ourselves were training in some of the provinces, and there weren't enough trainers, and then we had to go back to the drawing board, which ultimately led to us having to train across all 9 provinces. That meant more lead teacher training, which happened, and we did actually succeed, and we went beyond our allocated figure of training 2,500 teachers. We trained 2,837 teachers, and we have, of our 100 teachers, lead teachers, we've actually now increased to 128. So moving on, I want to speak about associated costs in the future. And we would like for both the programs at some point to take it to another level. And when we look at the Unplugged, we gave kits. We gave kits to every teacher in our initial training. And we had only budgeted to train 600 teachers for that. And because we had to juggle our figures also, we had to take on more Unplugged training because of connectivity and access to computer labs and people, and just basic lack of infrastructure. So we ended up having to give 1 per school. So we have to seriously think about how we're giving kits going in the future and the funding for the kits. And in both the Karen Wallstra and the Intel program, there's opportunity for outside resources like getting robots, etc., which we use for demonstration. And that comes at a cost. So if we really want to have inclusivity, we spoke about the uneven playing fields, the huge inequalities and the discrepancies. So if we want the same for every learner and every teacher, then we need to actually dig deeper and look elsewhere where we get resources. Yes, we also encourage the use of recycling, as you've seen in the picture with the owl, the picture with those little cars. We've actually bought stuff and taken like polystyrene trays. We've had Mr. Manuel make the wheels for us, train somebody to make the wheels for us so that there was no cost. But when the teacher goes back to the school, they're going to have to make their own to be able to share with the children. So we need to look seriously about if we want to make this a success. And then I want to say to the DBE, and we were at a meeting yesterday where provinces were sharing their skills development programs and the potential, and the service providers. We have proven we are capable service providers. So when you planning for skills development, consider using the teachers. Consider using us to enhance those schools that have had your pilot coding and robotics training. We've been in provincial meetings where the provincial departments have been saying, can you give us resources? Yes, we can assist, but bring us on as a service provider. So this one is technology, from the technology curriculum, and the teachers in our midst. And I think if I just click on this, you can see technology in action. Can you see it? Okay. Just moving on. So how do I see it? Okay. Old age, it's fine. So to the next one, Michelle and in Zareen's presentation, there were a lot of the Karen Wallstra photographs, and this is the Intel one. So just to share with you. And then where we took this, what we did with our teachers. So NAPTOSA had 3 lead teachers. One of them, well, the one wasn't a lead teacher, but she's trained on Intel, was a visually impaired teacher from a special school who participated on the world platform of the United Nations and shared their experiences. Michelle was the other teacher that shared a young teacher experience from the perspective of technology. So the priority theme, as you see in terms of the CSW, United Nations Commission on the Status of Women, is currently happening. It finishes on Friday, is innovation and technology, change and education in the digital age for achieving gender equality and empowerment of all women and girls. You know, the mindset technology is for men, and only men are good at coding and robotics. It's a mindset we need to move away. Actually, if you look at the Intel AI developer is a young girl. She was employed at 16 years old. And there are other countries, even the Islamic countries where women are denied education, leading in AI software development are young women. So that's an opportunity. That is what we responded to, and our theme was South African women breaking the digital glass ceiling. Our unions are present. Education International, FEDUSA and collectively under the ITUC, which is the International Trade Union Confederation, and they've put forward resolutions speaking to this priority theme as far as the innovation and technology is concerned. So on another platform, as labor, collective labor, remember our EI Vice President is none other than Mr. Maluleka, the General Secretary of SATU. So we have collective voice as 5 teacher unions internationally as well. So collaboration goes beyond this. And then to the next one, applications we use. So this is what I learned actually this weekend, and I wouldn't lie, you will see just now pictures of the weekend. You heard of Kahoot. And if we probably be able to play a game, which is like 4 minutes, or 2 minutes actually, where you can use it as a tool in your classroom, an interactive tool, so that learners can, you can answer questions, it's a competition, and it comes up on the screen. And then you open your chat GPT. That's an artificial intelligence. There's a lot of negativity around it. But we saw an example of how teachers can use it in a positive context. And a positive context being, you can put a topic, get a comprehension content, get the questions and get the memo and adjust accordingly, and even grade, get the questions according to the amended Bloom's taxonomy. Then you've heard of Canva. And then these apps. Does anybody know what this one is? Somebody want to help me or tell me? This one here? Oh, okay, the one under Kahoot. It's not working, the pointer. The under Kahoot. Yes. Yes, Microsoft 365. It's on your smartphones. Every time we open a document on our phone, we're using that. This one? What is that? Yes, it's actually, it comes with Microsoft, the most used browser more than Google, because you use this browser to find Google as a browser, okay? So the most used browser. Then if you don't have Microsoft 365, on Google, you have this Google Suite that has documents, presentations, a drive, a Google Drive to save documents, etc. So through this program, we were able to see how to maximize that which we have. Then block coding. Block coding in your Android phones, under kids, the games, you've got coding and robotics. You've got games there through gaming being taught to children. So it's stuff we're using all the day and all the time, and we're not quite aware of what's happening. So we have technology in our hands, we're using it, we are using 21st century skills. So this is what our programs have taught our teachers. And as I said, I also learned some of the two things about how ChatGPT works this weekend past, and Kahoot. And then to the next one. I hope, can get the IT person, I want the sound if you could hear. Yeah, no, I want sound. I tested the sound earlier. It wasn't very. I wanted
Greetings,
sound.
everyone.
Okay, while we're waiting
Greetings,
for Michelle
everyone.
to come in, let's just
My
go
name
back
is Bongi.
again.
What happened to?
I don't know what happened to the sound. Let's go back now.
Oh, how did you link it in here? Oh,
Okay.
I don't know.
All right.
Greetings,
So artificially, somebody
everyone.
said, I forgot the gentleman's name, who said, can somebody see the, can a tech person help me, please? I think it's important you hear this.
Greetings, everyone.
Artificial
My name is
intelligence
Bongile
will
Emma
never-
Tukwana.
where's the video?
I am an office
Artificial
administrator at
intelligence will
NAPTOSA.
never- Oh,
My
Emma's
interest in
sound is
IT
playing,
started when I
apparently.
was still in my early years.
Yeah.
I used to fix radios and watches at home. This may seem small right now, but even back then it was considered abnormal for a girl child to find interest in electronics. This did, however, not put a stop my interest. Therefore, I did not hesitate to grab this opportunity and share my experience and in a turn motivate other women and girls who may be experiencing the same limitation that I had to break the digital class ceiling. In 1997, despite having completed my matric, the only job that I could get was that of a cleaner at NAPTOSA. As a union,
Okay,
greetings.
it's fine. Let me just share quickly what this is about. So, Ms. Tigwane, Emma Sibungile Tigwane, started off as a cleaner at NAPTOSA Federation in 1997, although she had a matric certificate. And by 2010, she learned skills, she's sharing experience. She was also on the international platform, lifelong learning, digital skills for somebody who's not in the education space. She learned how to use the printer, photocopier, switchboard, became a receptionist in 2010. In 2010, when the new computers that came on board, she started working with Microsoft, bought herself a typewriter to learn to type, and improved her skills, worked on the database at NAPTOSA, was able to use Google, was able to help people with directions when they were lost telephonically. She went on Google and
Greetings,
found
everyone.
them.
My
She
name
worked
is
on the
Bongile Emma
website.
Tukwana.
And
I
then
am an
moving
office
on,
administrator at NAPTOSA. My interest in IT
Okay.
started when I was still in my early years. I used to fix radios and watches at home. This may seem small right now, but even back then it was considered abnormal for a girl child to find interest in electronics. This did, however, not put a stop my interest. Therefore, I did not hesitate to grab this opportunity and share my experience and in a turn motivate other women and girls who may be experiencing the same limitation that I had to break the digital class ceiling. In 1997, despite having completed my matric, the only job that I could get was that of a cleaner at NAPTOSA. As a union in the education sector, various opportunities were available for further study and training. I took the bull at the horns and decided to grab the opportunity and further my studies and learn new things. My interest in technology grew stronger by the day, much more so with exposure to the different technological devices. I explored with the different machinery and learned how to manage the photocopy and printing devices. I also volunteered to be a receptionist during my lunchtime. It is during this learning experience that I mastered the switchboard. I also explored the different software that was available on the reception computer. Access to Microsoft Office got me interested in office administration. This motivated me to invest in a typewriter that I purchased from a second-hand shop to improve my typing skills. I took a leap by requesting the union to fund Saturday classes through a higher institution of learning. The powers that be were obviously on my side because my request was approved. I promoted as a receptionist in 2007 whilst attending my weekend classes on office administration. During that time, there was an advance from big computers to modern desktops. The printing machines also changed to touchscreen and cross-table documents. I learned how to use this on my own and help other colleagues too. In 2012, I volunteered in a PCT project for HIV and AIDS, which introduced me to Google. I oversaw bookings and verification of travel claims using Google Maps. I was able to assist members who struggled with directions by giving them telephonic instructions. I also volunteering in assisting with the upload of information on the NAPTOPSA website during my spare time. During that time, I also learned more about the organization database. I decided to volunteer in the finance department, which resulted in me working with finance, filing of travel claims, and other documentation. My skill and hard work finally paid off as I'm now working in the finance department. By doing all of that, I have learned during my volunteering period as well as processing payments and learning new skills. I have also just signed up for online bookkeeping course. In my personal time, I was able to assist my daughter with the computer applications technology homework, which included Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, and Excel. My self-taught ability to update software is useful to both my colleagues and my broader community. I assist colleagues and peers within the community regularly with their computers and mobile devices. I also assist learners with online applications and creation of email with my community. This gives me the satisfaction of knowing that my lifelong learning does not stop with me. Young girls within the community have a warrior queen like me to look up to. I like to encourage women and girls that no matter how hard it gets, do not give up. A wise woman once said, "Don't be afraid. Be focused. Be determined. Be hopeful. Be empowered." Thank you.
There you have it. Emma is in the age group of the majority of the teacher cohort, the 48-year plus. And we find teachers are resistant to take up technology and digital skills. And if Emma can do it, our teachers can do it. We must open it up to not just the teachers, our admin staff in the schools, our subject advisors. There's a lot that you can do to maximize the use of the instruments that you have. And then, as I was saying in conclusion, that I think it's a brass somebody that said this, artificial intelligence will never replace teachers, but teachers who know and work with technology will replace teachers who don't. And then finally, collaboration at its best. Teacher unions got together on the weekend to get retrained and regroup on the Intel program. Some of us haven't offered it, others have. We had difficulties, but it was a wonderful a day and a half. And that's the picture, and you can recognize some of the colleagues that are in the room. Thank you very much, DB, for this opportunity. We look forward to both yourselves and the colleagues in the PEDs and our colleagues in the teacher union to collaborate for the best interest of our learners and our teachers. Thank you very much on behalf of NAPTOSA.
Thank you, NAPTOSA. Now we're going to get Natu, Professor Imende.
You can use this if you want to.
Good afternoon, everyone. Honorable DDG and some honorable people that I was meeting for the first time today, like Professor Hreling, having interacted with him for a while on the Nelson Mandela training platform. Representatives of unions, ladies and gentlemen, mine will be much shorter. I will focus mainly on the business plan, which is basically to say on what we are planning to do this year. So it will probably take less than 10 minutes. Okay, now in terms of introducing things, as the business plan requires, you're supposed to go a bit into the introduction of where you are coming from. I think that was captured very well by Fasiha. I shouldn't say more other than to say that for NATU, we selected 3 service providers last year. Nelson Mandela, I'm really happy to see the champions of that program here today because I had met the others. Karen was with us quite a bit last year. Although Intel, I don't know if anybody is representing Intel here, but we had Intel, we had people who actually came in to represent Intel, so at least we had those 3. I think the background is the same as it was presented previously. We wanted to cater for schools that could not be plugged by offering them unplugged options. And then we thought for those that already had those facilities, we should give them an opportunity to use the facilities they had to do it in a plugged way. So that really defined what we did in the 2022-23 training session. As Zareen indicated earlier in her report, we were meant to train 2,000. We ended up with 2,675. The business plan also requires us to say something about who we are. There is more in the business plan itself, in the write-up, but for this purpose now, I will only say that NATU presents itself as the oldest union, teacher union in the country. It is proud of that. And then in the interest of name throwing, which is very common, especially in political circles, to say that one of the presidents of the union has also been someone who was instrumental in the liberation struggle and also in mapping out what was later referred to as the Freedom Charter. So NATO is very proud to have been led at some point by someone of that stature. Now, coming to the indicators that are going into the business plan, the two unplugged platforms that were selected for 2022, thank you very much. We will also continue with our plan for 2023-2024. We will not get to 2024. We'll complete by the third term as the DDG was proposing. So we are not expecting to incur any expenses with regard to the training of lead teachers, because we are going to continue with the same lead teachers who were trained last year. They will continue. In fact, as soon as we get the bell to start, we can start, because we had to put some of them on pause. They kept on asking, when are we starting again? And we said, no, the DDG hasn't told us yet that we can start. But as soon as we are ready to start in terms of the new cycle, we'll start with that. Except that in my latest interaction with Professor Greli, he indicated that they've got another option for coding that is meant to facilitate the link with the teaching of mathematics. I'm not very sure how he phrased it, but we're very excited with that option. So we are going to include, perhaps that will be a one-day top-up program, training those that were already trained last year for that extension. The other additional thing we are going to do is that we noticed that some of the teachers that were trained last year were very keen to play the role of facilitator. So we are going to team them up with those that were trained so that they can refine their abilities and competencies in training other teachers. So we are not just going to rely on the teachers that were trained last year, but we are going to add to them those other teachers that they trained who feel sufficiently confident to join them in training other teachers. So I think that the teaching course will increase as a result of putting on other teachers on board. But overall, apart from that top-up training that I was talking about now for the Nelson Mandela platform, we are not expecting that there will be much more in terms of expenses for training lead teachers. Except also that we are adding entrepreneurship. At some point I dropped it, I picked it up again, and then we dropped it and we've picked it up again. So I think we'll include it. We might have a small percentage of teachers assigned to that training. But we felt that it's better to get started with it, because it's also one department of basic education. And if we ignore it, we keep on ignoring it, it might not work out to be in the interest of the country. So we will start with it. We'll put it on board this year. I was talking about the two to carry on with the training this year. It was a bit slow when it started, but it picked up. So we are encouraged that we are going to have already been trained. In this regard then, as Hema indicated earlier, I think on her last slide, we are very grateful, guys. We are very grateful for that, NAPTOSA. We hope that you can find it in your heart to invite us again for a similar empowerment of our teachers. Entrepreneurship. We, at this point, have decided to go along with the team from the DBE itself. We felt that if these people were specifically identified to come up with this program, they must do that job. So instead of going outside and asking for other people to come and train our teachers, we felt that we should give them the opportunity to train our teachers to the extent that they can, and then we at least will have got started with the whole thing of entrepreneurship. I'm sure in that training they'll be able to contextualize it within the whole curriculum. At first, for example, we thought it was going to be a standalone subject, but they have explained subsequently that entrepreneurship is going to be infused into the existing structure. It's not going to be a standalone subject. So let them come and workshop our teachers on both the policy direction and the content that entrepreneurship at the various levels, in terms of the phases, foundation phase, intermediate. And I think from what they have said so far, they are not very much interested in the FET phase. They seem to be happy just workshopping within the band, the GET band. So we are giving that responsibility to them to train our teachers. We've been fighting about the length of the program, but we have finally found each other. We have agreed on that. Okay, so what are we getting out of this thing? It's basically to train, because the budget has remained the same, it's basically to train 2,000 teachers. We're able to go beyond that, but our minimum mandate is the 2,000 teachers, I think, and then we just have to spread that number across the training options that we have. So, what is our plan then for 2023, going on to 2024? Eastern Cape, it was recorded as 0-0 for last year. We would like to get started there. We've got a small section of the Eastern Cape where we've got a footprint. So those are the figures. I don't think it's necessary for me to go through each one of them. But our ambition in 2023 is to have a footprint in each of the 9 provinces so that one of the commitments of the union is fulfilled of training, having NATO teachers, as the name implies, the National Teachers Union. You are not a National Teachers Union if you are only present in 1 or 2 provinces out of 9. All right. So, which programs are we going to be following? The first 3 are the ones that we ran with in 2022. And those are the estimated numbers of teachers that we hope to touch. And then the 4th one is an extension of the 3rd one with that focus on mathematics. So the 3rd and the 4th will be Nelson Mandela. And then entrepreneurship, we are tentatively giving them 200 teachers at this point. But when the training starts, there may be a little bit of movement up and down in relation to those figures until we get to 2,000, where we shall say we have now reached our target. The budget, because there's no business plan without a budget, that is how I have added 33 cents, Zareen. I don't know whether that is correct, or whether 33 cents will upset your budget nationally, whether it can be contained. I think last year we were given 2.7, so I was trying to get to 2.7. So that's how we then go with the figures. And although Mr. Patayach doesn't seem to be happy, I'll proceed and conclude. And in the conclusion, we are basically saying, just like Fasika has said earlier, when we started with this thing last year, there were a lot of unknowns. We really did it because it came from the top. So we felt we had to do it. But having seen the very fruitful responses everywhere we went with coding and robotics, it has been the most successful program since my own association with the TUC started. Surprisingly, because I had my skepticisms at the beginning, I was one of the doubting Thomases. Somehow just switched me over to the other side as the program rolled on. So right now I can stand proudly in front of you and make a proclamation that I was fulfilled through this program last year. I used to send things to Zareen even in the middle of the night because of the excitement. When I got all these photos, videos, whatever time it was, I would say to myself, before I forget, let me just forward. So it was really an exciting time, and we look forward to a fruitful year again in 2023, Mr. Padayachi, Zareen, Simone. Someone told me it is Simone. Thank you very much, everyone, for your time.
Thank you, Prof. We then have Sao. Dr. Davies is going to join us.
Chair, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I walked up from the back, and that gave me the opportunity to look at the level of wakefulness on the part of the persons present. And it's actually pretty low. You've had a long day. But rather than trying to get you into a state of animation by getting you to sing a song or jump up and down or something, I will give you this permission. If you do fall asleep, please do not snore. Thank you for the opportunity, Chair, to talk to the audience here today. I'm going to do a slight retrospective on phase 1 and then a prospective on page 2. Now, when we came into the project last year, We had some objectives and expectations. These were, first of all, that we should get started with unplugged coding, that we should learn how to use those techniques in the classroom, that teachers should feel confident in teaching ICT concepts to students and develop ideas for running and facilitating hands-on unplugged coding lessons, worked hands-on and unplugged, have fun, introduction to computational thinking, and they should implement those using 6 bricks, maths, games, and of course we had tanks as well. Other speakers have spoken at some length about the challenge that this poses when you have no idea how you should actually set about doing this. And so, in implementing the program in the classroom, one of the things that we tied it to was the whole question of developmental skills. In other words, the idea being that an outcome here should be some form of developmental growth in the persons exposed to it. But our questions for phase 1 were, amongst others, these. This training cannot possibly be simply a method of behavioral modification. It relates to the way the person sees the world. It relates to the way they think. It's a much bigger thing than simply teaching people skills. And how do you sort of deal with that? It's not only a question of what the educator thinks, but of how they think. And you've got somehow or other to address that in your training in a very brief period of time. How do you do that? So that was a question we had. And so what we said to ourselves was the nature of the knowledge environment is significant. What is an adequate methodology to deal with the various components into which the individuals have to slot? Seated before me, I suppose there are about 100 people. If I were to try and test each one of you in terms of your knowledge component and how you fit your knowledge together, I would get 100 answers, because we don't all function in the same way. And so the challenge that we were trying to address was the whole question of that. It's not about skills for a changing world, not just that. It's also about understanding change and its nature. In other words, the guys who talk about knowledge remind us that there's a very important component which is called knowing that. We may know how, but what about knowing that? And so our key question, what is an effective methodology for developing the knowing how and knowing that components within a short period of training? Because if you can't address that, colleagues, it's our view it's not worth doing at all. If you're going to herd 50 people into a room for 2 hours or 3 hours and send them away rejoicing, there's much more to it than that. So learning how to code is a core skill or competency for people to develop problem-solving skills, and we felt that that was not just for computing. And so we had the view that robotics is a 3-dimensional tool that we can use to help students understand IT concepts, but there's much more to it than that. Now, in phase 1, we did learn some lessons, and many of those lessons were quite hard lessons to learn. One of these were that we had to make sure that all the administrative components of the DBE are known in advance, because there were some bits of information we simply never asked for, because they were not important to us, but they were very important to the DBE. And when Zareen goes home at night, she's probably got an image of me somewhere or other that she pushes pins into because of the trouble she's had trying to get certain information out of us. We also had to make sure that the people attending understood the attendance time requirements. If you're running a one-day course, it's 1 day. It's not we arrive 2 hours late and we leave 3 hours early, because there's no point in offering it. You're not getting the time exposure. And so truncation of the time also dilutes your product. We need to arrange for far more comprehensive evaluation of sessions before the sessions came to an end. One of our many weaknesses was that I don't think our evaluations were very good. They were not comprehensive enough, and we didn't give people enough time to attend to those. Sometimes we make the mistake when we've got an audience in front of us of failing to recognize the massive collection of skills and abilities they have. All of you are brilliant people in your own right. And if a trainer does not tap into that, then in actual fact, you start losing the plot. And so you've got to accept that the trainees who are going to come to you will know a very great deal about certain things. We have found, and a lot's been said about this, so I won't dwell on it, the unplugged lessons are particularly useful for building and maintaining the collaborative environment, because people have to depend on each other. When we started talking about phase 2, we were greatly taken by the logo you see in front of you. This is a DBE thing. It's a DBE logo for the 3-stream model, and we've seen that all over the place. But we started taking a close look at the various components of that 3-stream model. Mindfulness. What does that mean in terms of a training situation? Autonomy, critical thinking, problem solving, entrepreneurship, global citizenship, communication and innovation. What are those things in the context of the 3-stream model? Because we know that the 3-stream model is coming. So what we are doing, we felt, must somehow or other plug into what we know is on the way. Otherwise, once again, it's something that just hangs out there and it doesn't mean particularly much. And so our first question was, what actions can we take to ensure that training going into phase 2 somehow relates to phase 1? In other words, can you get some sort of continuity? Hema reminded us powerfully that we're talking here not about robotics and coding as such. We're talking about skills for a changing world. And how do we take forward the various issues that arise when we're talking about skills for a changing world, no matter what name we give them? And so we thought that continuity of mindset and skills is important in the knowing how and knowing that paradigm. Now, one of the areas of skill that came up was computational skills, logical thinking, important for many subjects, but also for mathematics. And we began to wonder about the stuff that we're reading coming out about the very poor performances in mathematics that our country as a whole is demonstrating. Is there some way you can feed into that by strengthening the knowledge environment outside and around of mathematics? But we also felt that our coverage, as you saw, we did 2,250 teachers or something like that. We've got 40,000 members. How do you make sure that you get equality of coverage of skills across a population? All of us have now worked in a given population of teachers, but we haven't covered them all by a long shot. And what do we do about the ones who have actually not had that exposure? And so we felt that should we try to argue for an extension, at least, of some of the phase 1 activities into phase 2, and the learned professor has preceded me with that argument. Thank you, sir. That helps our case a lot. Could we use robotics and coding, we asked, as part of the development of skills and knowledge in mathematics in the inter-SEN phase? Can you actually do that? And we know that those skills are crucial going forward, not only in mathematics. Those of you perhaps who take tourism those of you who take business studies will know that these skills are critical going forward. So those were factors that influenced some of our thinking. And so we produced a business plan. Now ours looks a little bit different from everybody else's, no pretty pictures and so on, but I don't think it matters much. What we're going to be looking at are various outputs, and you see them over there. We want to function, in effect, still in the area of coding and robotics that we did in phase 1. We also want to function in a new area which is related to mathematics in the intercen phase, with coding and robotics brought in. And in many ways, it's similar to what NATO has in mind, and we haven't spoken about it. But it shows what great minds do, so we tend to think in the same direction. So we are trying to make a pitch for continuing to get coverage of what we haven't yet done, because we think it's necessary for equalization of skills. We think that it's important to see what we can do to bring certain concepts into the mathematics. One of the things that we've heard here is how much fun this can become for pupils. And I don't know how many of you teach mathematics, and I don't know how many of you have pupils who say that mathematics is fun. But one actually wants to see to what extent you can accomplish that. We had a small component last year where we worked in the LSEN phase, and we think we'd like to do some of that again. So in our business plan, you can see, I'm not going to spell it all out, time carries on, but in the end, we figure that we can do roughly the same numbers on roughly the same budget as we did last year. If the department will approve of it, we'd like to devote about 50% of our budget to the question of the mathematics. And I've had some preliminary conversations with NMU, with whom we've worked very well in the past. And NMU are quite sure that in point of fact it should be possible to mount a program which we can actually use. You'll also see that we've got the usual stuff about PLCs and so on. Our efforts were not as successful as we had hoped, and so we're going to try and do better this time round. You saw this little sketch earlier on. One of our presenters also used it. But the ones I want to refer to are number 7 and 8. Coding teaches problem-solving and critical analytical skills. And what we read in all the TIMS stuff, and what we read in all the Pearl stuff, and what we read in Small's reports, and a whole lot of other things, tell us that we're short on the ground in terms of problem-solving skills. And then coding is a new type of literacy. It's a language that is coming in, and the better we do at teaching our learners that, the better we shall be. And then, what's your superpower? Here you are. There she is. You saw her this morning. We have to bridge the skills gap by equipping individuals with the knowledge and skills that will take them in to the coming century. I can't yet fly a motor car, because we haven't yet got motor cars that come with wings. But when they do, if I want to continue to drive, I'm going to have that skill. And so if we can prepare children by giving them skills in advance, that would assist them not only in earning, not only in their citizenship, but in becoming valuable citizens of the country. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. I promised you 10 minutes. I think you got 11, but thanks for that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Doc. We have Peu, Mr. Bose.
Thanks, Program Director. I noted that SATU took 33 minutes and NAPTOSA took exactly 30 minutes. Natu took 21 minutes after giving us a promise of 10 minutes. Colleagues, mark my word. I'm not going to be here for more than 7 minutes.
It's according to your vote weight.
Yes, DDG. Colleagues, much of what I was going to say is already said, and I'm not going to repeat it. Just to pick up a few, we are a SPEU, we also had to go through exchange of management and the rest, which led us to where we are. But I just want to advance our special appreciation to DBE, especially Zareen, Fisahi, and Lamaje, and other members of DBE, whom we had in a casual talk in the passages. But mark my word, those casual talks were the commands in themselves, in their right space. I'm just going to go straight into the presentation, and I'm going to present our business plan. I'm very much excited that as SPEU, we went over our target, and we beat SATU, I'm telling you. If you remember the presentation of Zareen, SATU had a variance of, I think, 1.3, if you can remember. And check, we as SPEU got 4.6. I thought we deserve an applause, colleagues. 100% is 100%. Right, that is the overview of our presentation. And this is our model. We will continue to do Lego 6 bricks. And also we are also looking at stepping into entrepreneur and also zooming into E-cubed for the best reasons known by us, colleagues. We learned hard lessons in the past, and moving forward, we are not prepared at all to do the very same mistakes. We are stepping into step 2, being fully prepared. And DDG, we are promising you 120%. For those who are not mathematicians, 120% of our number, hey, that will disclose the number that I was trying to hide. But anyway, it's okay. That is extra 100 teachers that you are going to train. And that 20%, it's a bonus looking at what we have. I don't want to condone any other thing that did not augur us well or we did not do in the past. We are now moving forward. We bury the past. We will also increase our lead teachers who are facilitators, because we picked up the problem that these are the only people that we had, the small number that we have, based on voting weights, we had to take them out of class from time to time. Now, moving forward, we also said, no, it is imperative for us to increase this number of teachers so that we can be able to easily reach our target. And we will train on and expand on areas that we have not touched. We only selected 2 provinces last year. Our plan was to do 3. We did 3. Now, this year, we will also touch into, of the 3 that we did last year, we'll also touch extra 2 provinces. Mpumalanga is one of them. And this is the purpose, to maintain the collaboration at all costs. We have made it so far, colleagues, not by our own. A number of people in this room made it possible for us as SPEU to make it. We wouldn't make it if we were not part of the collaboration, and we are going to continue maintaining that. Now, we also continue to work with DBE, PDEs, districts, and all teacher unions. I must also flag this one, that we are also getting support from other unions. Naptosa, please continue to invite us. Let's bury the past and move forward. And we are continue to empower, to upskill and reskill our members on not specifically and not only on coding and robotics, as Hema put it, on the skills, blah, 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 blah. We will work together to solve current problems using the now solutions. It is very much imperative for us to take our colleagues, our teachers on board, to be able to deal with the now problems and use the now solutions. And this is the way. And in our process, we are also planning to intensify our monitoring. We acknowledge that there are some trainings that we could not be there to monitor what was happening. And going forward, we are going to intensify our monitoring to make sure that everything goes accordingly. Because that will help us to keep our objective of utilizing value for money. Also, we looked at the way we reported. Colleagues, I don't want to mention the number of calls that came from Zarin and Simone in terms of when do I see this report? And that is corrected, colleagues. We will use the prescribed templates. Attendance will be checked and reported using the relevant TUC registers. Evidence-based reports will also be availed. You're not going to ask us to provide evidence of any activity that we took as SPEU. And our focus is mainly on we're going to start looking mainly at the rural areas and move into semi-rural. If we still have some cash, then we will also tap into the urban areas. We learn from others. We learn how others manage to move and to touch in all these areas. So we are there, colleagues. And the other aspect is we received from DBE. So it is our plan as SPEU to make sure that and we are going to continue to maintain it because of the collaboration, because of working together with our PEDs and our district officials. What causes this? How best can we also deal with this one? And to mitigate and monitor. In terms of the progress, colleagues, I think I mentioned that this one, that we will make sure that we timelessly report and we will quality assure our trainings. It is our wish that any teacher who attends our training will not one day say, I wish to attend the same training somewhere. Then it will mean that we did not do justice in terms of our training. We will make sure that wherever we train, there should be value for money. And measure our progress from time to time in terms of reaching our target and also giving the bonus that I promised today. Our way forward. We will work collaboratively with all those, and we are looking forward for the same, if not more collaborating. And DG, we are the better people, and we are going forward. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you. I think, let me start with PEU. I think PEU has, they actually got less to do on their business plan. I know the others are putting the PowerPoint, but NATU and SAOU have submitted their business plan. So we'll see whether the first two colorful presentations are reflected in the business plan. Because we'll see whether you got risk analysis and finance. And I think they raise other points about value for money. But I think I want to thank you for the preparation and the input. I think for any comments, any questions? Unless I'm left in the room with all the people who worked with the business.
On this presentation was the inclusion of entrepreneurship. Because if you compare, Kenya employs 17% in the informal sector. And South Africa employs 7% in the informal sector. Now, clearly this shows you, the gap here shows you that South Africa lacks the skills for people to go and work for themselves. Now, that is why I'm saying that I'm going to applaud the proposals that were presented here. But again, I must say that there is a challenge with entrepreneurship. Just like mathematics, entrepreneurship is tricky because entrepreneurship cannot be taught by someone who has not engaged in entrepreneurship. Just like mathematics. Unless otherwise, if you're going to say you will teach theory in entrepreneurship. And you might again go back to the same problem of people who have theory but they cannot apply that theory into practicality. I submit DDG. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, colleagues, then I'm going to call Ms. Mache, who's going to just take us through some of the deliberations and a recommendation that have been noted during the course of the day.
Thank you, DDG. Colleagues, previous session is about to close. We wanted to type and capture, the room is empty, and capture so that the people online are able to see what we are going to reflect on. Colleagues, these are some of the recommendations that we managed to capture throughout the session. Some might not reflect as you have indicated them, but my colleagues are recording because they're going to do a comprehensive report. We have noted from the floor that we need to look into the impact study so that we have a baseline and we look at what is the impact of this initiative. We have also noted that we need to maximize on the collaboration and the partnerships that we have. It's through this collaboration and the partnerships that we managed to achieve in terms of this project. And we want to capitalize on the lessons that were learned from this collaboration, and we want to maximize on those lessons. We want to also look into increasing the understanding when it comes to the skills for the changing world, what it entails. This will assist when you choose what you want to train on, so that we get an understanding that it's not just coding and robotics. I think the unions, as they were presenting, we are able to pick that. We also are looking at expanding the reach of the training so that we ensure that all teachers are able to participate in these trainings. And we are also saying that both plugged and unplugged so that we are able to reach everyone. We're reminding ourselves of the fact that as a country, not all places are safest for connectivity. So some of our teachers will benefit and learners from unplugged. And we're also looking at strengthening the coordination This one we are linking with our PEDs so that we are able to ensure that PEDs understand their role when it comes to this specific project, as well as our districts, our circuits, so that they are able to support the initiative. Government have put 32 million into the project. Therefore, we need our government officials to understand what we are trying to achieve. We also want to strengthen advocacy and communication so that we can ensure that we have buy-in from all stakeholders up to our principals, meaning the communication that will go will not just end at the province. We will be trying to issue circulars for principals to also get an understanding of the project and try and reach everyone in the sector using various media, not just circulars. We also want to remove barriers from collaboration and partnerships for understanding of when we talk of collaboration, what can be achieved through a collaboration, and also partnerships. Colleagues, with this collaboration, I mean, there was a lot of leeway and room to really choose what you want to train within the confinements of skills for the changing world, to work with some flexibility. And therefore, some of the presentations that we're hearing are saying, let's unpack this so that we are able to see. We can even tap into working together on a specific training instead of I work alone. That's collaboration and partnerships. Removing barriers to the project and understanding advocacy will help us to do that. Address perceptions and attitude about this coding and robotics, but specifically skills for the changing world, because this project is addressing not coding and robotics per se, but skills for the changing world. And try to educate from teachers up to high-level colleagues so that we do get that buy-in into the project. Document the value that is added by the project into our schools, into teaching and learning. And how do we document? We saw pictures, we saw videos. We should be starting to document these lessons that we are getting from teachers, the stories that they are able to share with us in terms of how is the project changing lives. This will help actually to continue to receive that funding. Expand on training, especially on our Elsin schools and in the rural areas. Maximize this training on quintile 1 to 3. We are not excluding quintile 4 and 5. We're reminding ourselves that there are schools which are quintile 5. However, they are servicing poor communities. That's why we are not excluding them, but we are just emphasizing quintile 1 and 3. All teachers should be trained on level 1 of Intel. It came out from the floor. We should include STEM graduates, and we also would want to have a discussion with SAIS on the issues of the PDPs, the points. And we also noted that you want us to include young people at various processes as we are implementing this project. But we have seen with your TUC, some of them you have seen that it's young teachers who came in front, and we are taking note of that. We'll ensure that we investigate how to source lead teachers who can be confident and who can commit to the training. So meaning we want to have a database of who are the teachers that we can utilize going forward. We want to train a lot of teachers so that we have a base of teachers that are resource for the whole sector. And we have noted from the past two last presentations, the 5 from the teacher unions, that this came with administrative tasks, quite a lot, and there's a need to understand these requirements, because at the end of the day, we still have to comply with some of these administrative tasks for us to get that money. Lastly, we want to ensure that there's monitoring and there's reporting, and we will make sure that you do receive your close-out report. Colleagues, that is all from my side. Let me not keep you further than this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's see if there's any comment from the House. Okay, colleagues, we're not going to delay any further. I think we will have a comprehensive report that will be made of the entire meeting, workshop itself, which we will share. These will be there. If you have any additions or you want to send us comments, you're welcome to email us. So I'm just going to call upon Ms. Matonzi to do the vote of thanks, and then we'll release you. And thank you for staying the course, and I think I look forward to the 2023 implementation, and I'm sure that we won't let you down, and we won't let our teachers down.
Afternoon. Probably we should start by saying, I quote, "What is your superpower?" I'm not going to take a lot of time here, given the work that was done today. I think probably what we were supposed to do was to stand up here, because the item is just a vote of thanks and say bravo in terms of the work that was done. What we appreciate more in terms of what we have seen today is actually seeing educators from the classroom, after the great work that teachers have done in terms of running the workshop, actually coming to share with us the great work that they've done at classroom level. So we want to appreciate that. And in appreciating SDBE, we want to start by appreciating the work that was done by our program directors, the DDG and the acting chief director. And we want to thank the service providers who assisted unions in doing their training, so that we talk to this thing collectively. We also want to thank the leaders from the unions. We start with political leaders that we have today. And we also want to thank especially leaders from the union who did the great work. There was a lot of work that was done. We also want to thank our provincial departments. It was not easy. The calls that we were getting and what provincial departments have done to assist them, they did a great work. But all in all, what it shows is that for qualitative, for us as a system to get equality education, it can't be one or a particular individual within the sector that can do the work. In terms of what we have seen today, because today basically we're just coming here just to celebrate, just to reflect on the great work that we are able to do as a collective. So we want to highly appreciate the collaborative that we have done, the collaboration that we have done, and we want to appreciate the work that was done by everyone. We also, lastly, want to thank all our departmental officials from other branches who are still with us today here. And we are thanking them in particular, and those who are not in here, because of how they've assisted Branch T in particular to run with this particular program. It was not an easy program, but it was easy because Hema, this time, we're beginning to do work. For the first time, when we were getting calls from unions, it was a call of how best do we do and how best do we take the program forward. So we want to appreciate and we want to thank everybody. Thank you, DJ.
Thank you, Ms. Matanzi. I think, colleagues, thank you for being with us. There are those colleagues who had to catch their flights and return. But thank you for being here. We will keep you posted as to our progress with this project. And wish you well, travel safe, and the meeting is closed.